How's everyone doing? um, we didn't it, Joe. I wanted to come on and talk to my audience and, maybe offer some optimism, maybe a path forward. Because on this channel, I sort of run a political project. So I guess I should comment on politics. If you don't know me, I'm Josh. I run a channel called Radical Planning, which is what you're watching right now. I just want to talk about a couple things that happened with this election, and then, like I said, offer you guys something to think about, something to hold on to as we move into potentially a very different world. So the first thing I want to address is this New York Times map. I'm sure you've seen it. It's a bunch of red arrows that are moving to the right. There are some blue arrows, but the map is indicating that almost every place in America since 2020 has moved further right than that election. And this is misleading. This is, I would call it liberal propaganda. I think it's meant to further divide us from each other, which I guess that's a very foreign concept to a liberal, the idea that people who don't vote like you can have solidarity with them. But I think that what I want to talk about with this map is that since 2020, Trump actually lost a significant voter base. He lost 3 million votes compared to 2020. We have to acknowledge that in 2024, he had significantly more votes than in 2016. And I certainly don't want to say that our country is not moving to the right. It is. But to say that, like, since 2020, almost every county in America has moved rightward is incorrect. It's misleading. What actually happened was that Kamala Harris failed to bring out the numbers that Joe Biden did because she's a bad candidate. Why I want to address this is because this leads to the line of thinking that has destroyed the Democratic Party over the past 50 years. The idea that the people who don't vote for you are unworthy scum. Look at this map. This idiot calling every red state Dumbfu-kistan and every blue state America. This is insane to me. This is so abhorrent, and I hate it. What I want to say is that there's been a trend of like defunding, ignoring, worsening the material conditions of people who live in these red states for quite some time now. And I think that there are obviously fascists among them that are bad people, people who are homophobic, queerphobic, transphobic, racist. There are bad people, of course, everywhere. There are bad people in the blue states as well. But part of the reason why I think that they're not voting for Democrats is that Democrats have abandoned them. They are not a part of the Democrat base. So naturally, they're going to vote for Republicans, even though, and maybe they don't understand this, maybe they do, but Republicans are not going to improve their material conditions either. I just think that, like, if one day we're going to, try to make this a better country and, like, try to implement better social programs, like, what are we doing right now? Like, why are people saying things like, "Oh, these these evil people, they voted for Trump, they didn't vote for our war criminal candidate." I don't understand, like, throwing out a great majority of people in this country and, like, believing that their lives should get worse, because in many instances, the people voting for Republicans already have pretty miserable lives that aren't being improved by the Democrats, and they, I don't know, for some reason think that Republicans will help them out. I don't like this line of thinking, and I think the New York Times map made it a lot worse, and I'm just seeing, like, some really horrible liberal takes on Twitter. I just wanted to put that out there. If we are building a socialist movement, it's not to the exclusion of people in the middle of the country. We have to be building a movement that includes everybody and makes everybody's lives better. But this leads me to discuss that Kamala Harris was the worst candidate we could have put forward, I think. Like this, she was not the right choice. Kamala Harris is unpopular. She's incoherent. She's got no policy. Do you remember that headline from the New Republic? Kamala Harris doesn't need policy to win. In fact, a detailed platform will hurt her campaign more than help it. That's so embarrassing. That's so embarrassing that this was written. Even without like a policy platform, Kamala Harris was able to move to the right of Joe Biden, which is quite a feat. So let's recall that there were hundreds, over 200 staffers from the Bush administrations and the Reagan administration that endorsed her. Dick Cheney endorsed her, which is wild. The story is that Kamala Harris was courting these Republican voters and like trying to capture the idea of a pre-Trump Republican, right? And she did this by promising to put a Republican on her cabinet, by vowing to increase fossil fuel extraction, by not creating climate policy. And in my opinion, worst of all, she provided no change to the Gaza situation. Under Kamala Harris, ostensibly, the United States would continue arming, funding a complete genocide of the Palestinian people. And despite what Democrats want to believe, that's an important issue to Americans across the political spectrum. If there is a Democratic base, if there's a base for this party, and we only have a two-party system, I think you should assume that Democrats, people who think of themselves as Democrats, do not think of themselves as Republicans, right? So if your party all of a sudden is adopting Republican policies, wouldn't that alienate the base? And I'm not just talking leftists, like, Democrats are mad at leftists for losing this election. But to take your base and to be like, well, we're actually going to invoke a bunch of Republican policies, that's just insane. So like she didn't really inspire her own base to get out and vote for her. And then let's take a look at how many Republicans she got to switch over to vote Democrat. Actually, 1% fewer than Joe Biden did. So all of this campaigning to get the right wing vote, it failed. So, building off of that point, we need to talk about how neoliberal policies are not popular. People don't like living under neoliberalism, even if they don't really understand like the word or what it entails. But when you present to the public a neoliberal policy, they're not going to get jazzed about it. And this is where urban planning comes in. When she started her platform, I remember that she was pro rent control. And that was a very exciting moment for people aligned with me. And then I think for, just general tenants across America to be like, okay, my landlord is my enemy, and Harris is going to address that, and I will benefit. And that was true. That was a policy that would have benefited people materially, and I think people liked it. But then something happened, something shifted. Probably all of her tech donors forced her into this like YIMBY platform instead. So the king of the YIMBYs, Matty Iglesias, wrote the dumbest. Well, I don't know if it's the dumbest tweet because like I got to be fair, I don't really know what he's trying to say. Maybe it's profound and deep, but his tweet says, "Really never thought I'd see a Democrat talking like this in a national campaign." And I don't know, he's not really good at screenshots or what, but the aspect ratio is insane. So I'm going to assume it was a TikTok. I don't know. But it's from a video that I haven't seen where she says, "We will cut red tape and create incentives for development so we can build." Um, that's the YIMBY ideology in a nutshell. And the thing that YIMBYs don't seem to understand is this is business as usual. Like I've been an urban planner for 10 years. That entire time, this is the only method of development that exists is to free up the market. And cities do it across the country. The issue is YIMBYs will argue that it's not enough, and they'll argue that it's never enough. Like no matter how much is done, it's never enough. There is no city to them that has really done it enough. But anyway, we don't need to go into why I don't like YIMBYism. You can watch any one of my videos to figure that one out. But you tell the average voter, it's like, okay, we're gonna open up land and we're gonna let developers build. That's not a change to them. That's not something different. They're not going to resonate with that. They're not going to think like, oh, that'll change things, because that's what people are experiencing already. That's status quo. That's what it is to live in America. Like land is opened up and then developed. That's the process. So it's really weird. This tweet is really weird to me to be like, I never thought I'd hear it. And it's like, this is actually all that Democrats believe in. But, maybe to be fair to this man, he's talking about favoring a multifamily approach rather than a single family approach. And yeah, I guess that might be a little bit new, but the bottom line is that Democrats will support whichever is the most profitable approach to the housing market for the private market, right? I did want to like go deeper into the rent control thing because I found a funny Reddit thread where r slash neoliberal, which is hell on earth, quite a miserable place to be. They posted a study that was actually done by Yimbys. I skimmed through the study and I recognized the names, but the study found that over 80% of Americans are in favor of rent control, with nearly 90% being in favor of caps on property tax increases year over year. The least popular policies by far are allowing new market rate housing and reducing parking minimums. And so the study found that this is what people believe, and the study ultimately, I think, maybe I'm wrong about it, but I think the study's conclusion was that Yimbys need to do more organizing and more education to let people know that freeing up the market, that supporting developers will have a trickle down effect, and which is called filtering, will have a trickle down effect, and that people will benefit through the construction of more buildings. So whatever, you can take that as you wanted. I disagree with that statement. But I think why I don't like Yimbys the most is their attitude about it. And so here are some of the posts in response. There's that Hard Times article with a chimpanzee. It says, "We taught this chimpanzee to understand the median voter's politics, and he hanged himself," in regards to people supporting rent control. Somebody wrote, "This is blackpilling as Yimbys just have to be loud and persuade elites more, I guess." Just putting it out there, huh? And then this guy wrote, "Yimby always needed to be an inside game, and it always has been. Public officials might be persuadable by charts and models and data in a way that the general populace never will be." This is called technocracy. And actually, if you guys watch Philosophy Tube, her most recent video, I don't even remember what it's called. It's the one about TikTok, but she discusses like the tech bro ideology of like basically desiring a king or like some sort of ruling group of like people who like really know it, like really like have the information down, like they have some sort of knowledge that the public doesn't have. And I think that's just so funny that Yimbys who have like never studied any of this and just like posts on Twitter and watch urbanist YouTube think of themselves as like these brilliant experts. So on to my next point. We had a terrible candidate representing all things to the left of Trump. And now we are going to live through another Trump presidency. And it's not going to be good. And a lot of people's lives are going to get materially worse. Most people's lives, probably. So I think that it's fine to grieve that. And it's fine to be sad right now and to take this week, maybe this month, and just be depressed about it. I just don't think a lot of people realize how demobilizing a like depressing tweet can be. And again, like I'm not picking on this guy. Well, it's weird for me to say that because he's a very big time journalist. But Jamel Bowie posted this tweet that it just, oh, I hated it. Uh, he wrote, "I think that the people interested in recriminations and score settling right now aren't seriously grappling with the magnitude of what happened and the implications for the rest of our lives. Most of us will probably die living in the political order that will emerge out of this election." I get the sentiment, and I know he posted this the day of the announcement, and it looks like right when he woke up. That we can't believe that. Like, we cannot allow ourselves to express those ideas. How many people are going to look at that tweet and just be like, "Yep, that's it. There's nothing left. This is my life now, and we're stuck under it." And all these people now who see tweets like this and are just like, "Yep, every year for the rest of my life will be worse than the year before, and we'll just never get out of this." You can't let yourself believe that. You will not survive through this thing if you believe that. And I want you to survive. Again, I don't want to rush it. Like, take this time and grieve, but you need to pull yourself out of it as soon as possible, and you need to find your place in the movement, and you need to, even if you have to fake it for a while, you need to find some sort of optimism, and you need to express that to the world. We all have to be a part of this, and I I'll leave it at that. And I want to share with you what I think the path moving forward uh, should be. And I'm just some guy. Remember, I'm just some urban planner. But I think that there is like a clear path that will actually lead to change. Controversial statement. I don't think electoralism is going to save us. I don't think at this point, I think whatever is about to happen with a fully controlled, fully Republican controlled government, we're just not going to get out of it by putting forward the right candidates. Now, I'm not saying completely give up on that, and I'm definitely not saying like give up on the idea of a third party. But there, we have to do something else. We can't be voters alone. So I think what you should look into if you're like completely unaware of what to do and like how to be a part of something, there are three big things that I think you should try to educate yourself on and eventually join if possible. So the first are labor unions. I am not an expert on labor unions, and I wish I was. I'm going to try and devote some of my research time to figuring that out. But I'm a remote worker. I don't my ability to unionize my workplace is I think zero, and I feel like I can't really be a part of the labor movement, obviously, because I'm not a part of a union. But I think that like it's extremely valuable to grow unions and then to also shift them towards a more radical, less liberal, more radical formulation of making demands in solidarity, not solely focusing on wins for individual workers. That is not a critique of unions. I'm just trying to get my thoughts out. Then I think second are tenants unions. As an urban planner, that's what I'm most interested in, what I know the most about, though I wouldn't call myself an expert on that. Recently on our podcast, Zoned Out, we got to talk to Tracy Rosenthal, who wrote the book with Leonardo Vilches called Abolish Rent. I highly recommend you get a copy of this book. It's really uplifting. It might be just what you need right now, but it's about tenants unions and how they're created and what they do and different levels of organizing them. And it's also got like a very, very detailed history of certain tenants unions in LA and their wins and like how they've been able to claim power. And it's just really incredible book, really inspiring, really easy to read. Highly recommend you get a copy of that. And finally, debtors unions. I don't think a lot of people know about this, but debtors unions are, I think, an extremely radical idea. I have this copy here, Can't Pay, Won't Pay, by the Debt Collective. I highly recommend you read this book. It's one of the most radical things I've ever read, and it's this idea that people who share debt together, which might actually be the most common, like, oppressing force right now, is debt. People who share debt together, if they can unionize, then they have power to withhold payments and then demand societal change, policy change, to demand that their debts are completely removed. I think it's so inspiring, and it really made me feel like there's a path forward with debt. I think that Debt Collective is an amazing organization, and this book is, I can't speak highly of it enough. So, what these three things have in common is that they don't seek change through electoral policy. They seek change by threatening to stymie economic growth. And in our neoliberal world, that is the only thing that matters to our government and to capitalists. I mean, that's the only thing that ever matters to capitalists. But if we are able to somehow grab the reins of growth in general, of profit, then we have power. And that's why I think it's crucial for people to join some non-electoral movement, which I would describe as a union. That's not to say like to abandon your electoral-oriented organizations. I think obviously keep doing that, but it's not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough, and I think unionizing is our only path forward. So I hope that was helpful. I am just some guy, but I really appreciate you, my audience. I'm really glad to have you, and I want to let you know that I am working on a really big video. I've actually probably foolishly stopped working on that so I could make this thing. But I am going to be releasing that soon, and it's kind of depressing. So I might work on it a little bit longer than planned, to recontextualize it under this, new president elect. I wrote and recorded the entire video before the election, so I think I have a little more work to do on that. In that video, I announced that I'm creating a Patreon, and so I don't know if this is the right video. Like I, I don't want to like exploit my audience right now, and I don't want them to think that Patreon is an exploitation anyway. But I just thought I'd announce it that I do have one. It's a $3 a month Patreon, and I'll be posting video reviews of the books I'm reading, and then also like occasional check-ins like this, where I discuss my research and what I think is going on. Maybe do more current events. Though I don't really like talking about current events publicly. So I'd really appreciate it if you check it out. But there's also nothing on there right now. I have to finish the video I'm working on for that. But I thought I'd just announce it now, and if you really support the channel or really want to support the channel, then it's an option. I think I should have a video up there in within 2 weeks. It will be about Carlos Moreno's book, The 15-Minute City. Long story short, I don't really like the book, and I think that I'm going to make a new 15-Minute City video soon, after the one I'm about to release, so you will be able to see me get to that and all the things that I'm reading in preparation of creating that script. And hopefully you can come to appreciate why it takes me 6 months to do these things, and maybe be a little more forgiving of my inability to release month to month. Anyway, thank you so much for sitting through this one. I hope I wasn't too rambly, and I hope more than that, that I gave you something to think about, something to consider, and something to hang on to. I think it's really important for all of us to come together and to find hope in something, and to believe that there is a future and something better moving forward. So thank you so much.